gritty stuff. So everything so far has been, kind of foundational. And then we talked about, just as we've begun to talk about development, we talked about investing your time. That was, let's see, that was Roman numeral 1, Introduction to Biblical Foundation, Roman numeral 2, Elements of Lesson Preparation, and A was Invest Your Time. Now we're going to go into B, Identify Your Purpose. This is a crucial element of sermon preparation. So many times preachers jump into a passage or a theme without asking, what's the purpose of my message? What am I really trying to accomplish? And it comes off like that. Like people kind of go, they got some good stuff because it's God's Word, and they heard some good rambling thought, which is great. And I mean it sincerely, but if they would have had their purpose really narrowly focused, it would have been a lot more effective. Your purpose has to be more than just to do a sermon.
Come on.
More than just preach the Word. More than just fill 30 minutes. More than just not look like a doofus, okay, when you're up there. But if you're honest, we've all done that, right? You run into a leaders meeting, you go, oh man, what am I going to do? I got to fill 30 minutes. What are we going to do today? Right? Haven't you? Or you run to a devotional and you just kind of wing it. I'm just winging it, I got to fill the time. We've all done that. We know better than that, but we've done that. We've just filled the slot, or, oh man, I just got to come up with something. I don't look like a fool. And we think selfishly about it rather than, oh my gosh, I've got all these combined man hours being given to me. I can change all these lives if I hit the nail on the head. Wow. That's the way we got to be thinking. All these lives are coming to me. I got to breathe into these dead that the slain may live. I mean, that's what we got to be thinking for everything we do. And I think just keeping that passion and keeping that focus on everything, whether it's a welcome or a communion or a Devo or a D group or a Sunday, whatever it is, going, this has got to be awesome because I have a staggering responsibility and opportunity to preach God's Word. Here are some key questions to ask to help you to develop your purpose. These are things that I go through all the time. First, what are the needs? I like to write out a needs sheet. I did this a lot in the early years of preaching. I still do it in different settings, where I take out a sheet of paper or in my computer, and I just write out a needs sheet, just various needs that come to mind. Just brainstorm. I mean, no sieve, no anything. I'm just like writing, like faith. People are discouraged. Some people have fallen away. A lot of new Christians. Marriages, or middle school, impurity, whatever. You're just like thinking through what's happening in the ministry right now, and then you're just listing all these things, and then you see what leaps off the page. Usually something leaps off the page like that. For example, I'll give you a real life example. Just recently I was traveling around to plan this missionary journey, to travel around and visit the different churches in the Rocky Mountain region. And I thought, okay, what are the needs? What's going on? Well, a lot of them had new leadership. I thought, okay, the new leadership, it's easy for people to focus on the new leader and be thinking, hey, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? But I want them to focus on God, and I want them to really focus on their hearts for one another. And I don't come that often to preach, so I want it to be more like basic, focused on the heart. So I'm thinking through these things, and it helped evolve to what I wanted to talk about. And I'll get into that in just a second. I'll kind of use that as an example for how I developed it. But you want to think of the short-term needs and the long-term needs. Sometimes we're just thinking short-term needs, what's going to get more baptisms next week? And then you look at the end of like preaching for a year, you look back over your notebooks and you're like, I basically did the same sermon over and over for all these years. I saw that in the Philippines. I remember going through, I used spiral notebooks, and I look back, and basically for all this time, about a year, every sermon basically said, you're not doing enough, you need to do more, just repent, get out there and do it. Wow. Those are my basic 3 points. And you think, what does that do in terms of providing spiritual nourishment to a people? Wow. Well, they get insecure. I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I just need to repent, get out there and keep doing it. Your sermons actually, they determine people's approach to God. And so you've got to think short term, what are the needs? But you also have to think long term. What are you trying to develop? Maybe you look over your sermons, you go, I have not preached a sermon on just grace in so long. Forget the short-term needs. This is a long-term need. I just need to talk about grace. Or maybe you go, I've been calling people to action every week. I need to have one where I just point out the actions of God, and I call them to nothing except to enjoy the grace of God.
Wow.
You don't do that every week, but you don't want to do the do every week either.
Yeah.
So you just want to think, what are the short-term needs? What are the long-term needs? So you write a needs sheet. Then you ask yourself, next question, what do you want to accomplish?
Right.
Like, what do you really want to accomplish in this one sermon? With those needs in mind, what do you want to accomplish? I wanted to accomplish in this missionary journey, visiting these different churches, to motivate people to examine their own hearts for God and one another. That's what I wanted to do, just to focus on their own hearts for God and one another. Then I asked myself, what mood do I want to create? What mood do I want to create? Always, I want it to be inspiring. Like, no matter what, I want it to be inspiring. It's just rare that inspiring does not make the list, but there's different ways to be inspiring. Do I want a sobering kind of a sound, like, or do I want a, motivational da-da-da-da kind of a sound, or, you're awesome kind of a sound, or what? You really got to mix it up and think what mood. You don't want the same. You always want inspirational, but you want different types of mood. Maybe you want it to be really convicting. Maybe you want it to be really solemn. But what mood do you want to create through your preaching? It helps to know that before you go into that. Then, with all that in mind, the needs, what you want to accomplish, the mood you want to create, you must express your purpose in one pregnant sentence, beginning with an infinitive. To blank. So one pregnant sentence that says, this is what I want to accomplish. For example, to inspire everyone to give God and each other their whole hearts. That was my purpose statement as I went around to Albuquerque, to Fort Collins, to Colorado Springs. That's what I want to do, to inspire everyone to give God and each other their whole hearts. You've got to be able to do that. If your purpose is not crystal clear to you, if you can't summarize it in one purpose statement like that, it will certainly not be clear to anybody else. People say, what do you talk about? Oh man, there's all kinds of good stuff. And they'll throw out some one-liners that you said that were really good. But you want everyone to get it. You want everyone to go. If you go, what was for dinner last night? You usually think we had steak or something like that. Unless you go to what's it called, Golden Corral. What'd you have? I had a little bit of everything, I don't even, you just feel stuffed, but you don't know what you ate. You're like, I don't even know what I ate. Like, I'd rather just have a well-prepared one little thing that I go, I had it, and it was awesome. Then kind of a little bit of everything, but we're feeding people country buffet and Golden Corral rather than five-star cuisine at times. So you want to know crystal clear, here's my purpose. You know it, and then they'll know it.
Come on.
So that was B. Now C, so A was invest your time, B, identify your purpose, C, choose a topic. Next, you want to come up with one topic, one passage, one word, or one launching idea. So it starts with the needs. I was just talking to a brother, he's saying, yeah, he's real creative, but sometimes it's hard to figure out what's going to be my launching purpose. Well, you start with those needs, and that really helps. Something leaps off the page, and you kind of figure out, okay, here's the needs, and short-term needs, long-term needs. Okay, yeah, I kind of get, this is what I want to accomplish. Then you go, now, okay, what's my launching thing? One topic, one passage, one word, one launching idea. For example, for this one that I was developing, I go, heart. I want to talk about heart. The evangelist comes into town. I don't want him just talking about contribution. I don't want to just be talking about, share your faith more. I want to be talking about heart. I want him to know I care about the heart. But then I didn't want just to heart in general. I go, your heart. I don't want them focusing on their new church leader's heart. I want them thinking about their heart. So that's what I just made my topic, your heart. I go, that's what I want to talk about, your heart. So then a passage that goes along with that. I studied in the Bible. I love doing this. Just looked up all the different places where your heart is used in the Bible. Just do a simple search, your heart, and study through every passage. And you eliminate a bunch of them because it doesn't have anything to do with anything, but then you find some that you go, wow, these are really good. So your heart. Or there's another time that I was starting a theme for the whole year, and I was doing the same thing. I was in Denver to come up with a theme. One theme for the entire year. We stick to it the entire year. A few years ago, we were putting together a mission team, our first mission team in many years, and we had a meeting after church. Who wants to go to Grand Junction or Cheyenne to plant the church? There was I don't even remember now, 8 people that came to the meeting. grade out of like 700 something at the time. And it was like the same people that go to the ushers meetings, and the same people that go, I appreciate those brothers, but it was like, they're awesome brothers, and no offense to ushers, but it was just like, they're really good volunteers, but it was like, wow, not like the old days. You go, who wants to go to Madras, India? And they're standing room only, where like half your staff is in there. So I thought, we have got a problem. We've got to recreate the culture of going in our churches. And so I studied out how Jesus had the limited commission and sending out the 72 in order to prep people for the Great Commission that was to come up later, where he sent them into all nations. And so I want to declare this 1 year, kind of our limited commission year, to prepare us. And then the next year, we're going to plant churches. So our theme for the year, that was the needs that leapt off the sheet. And then the theme, I go, okay, I need one thing: go. Go. That's going to be my word. Go. And that was our theme for that entire year. Go. Shortest theme we've ever had. Studied literally every place in the Bible that used the word go, going, gone. There's a lot of them. I had to sift through a lot, but then you see all the ways that God calls us to go, or goes himself. Super inspiring to do that. This last year, our theme was family. The same kind of thing that I study out family, and so much comes out when you study it out. So anyway, topic, passage, idea. Give maybe the idea that I was doing for that one sermon, give God and each other all your heart. The sooner you do this step of choosing a topic, the better your sermon will be. One of my preaching professors used to call it the flypaper approach. You guys remember the old days of flypaper? You hang it out there and things stick to it. Sometimes you're like, dang, look at all the stuff that's stuck to that. That's what happens with a sermon. The sooner you can come up with your topic, your theme, your launching idea, your word, and hang it out there, things stick to it. Songs, ideas, scriptures, magazine article, a movie, something like ideas come to you, but you cannot get cool ideas to stick to you if you're doing it Saturday night. Right. If you go to a cafe Sunday morning, you go, what are we going to preach on today? There's not enough time for things to stick to that flypaper, and it just won't be a great sermon. It may be really cool verses, it may be some neat thoughts, but it's not going to have all the clout and extra that if you would have hung it out earlier, things would have gathered to. Does that make sense? So C is choose a topic. The earlier, the better. D, create an outline. Create an outline. Again, this sounds so basic, but this is one that people really gloss over, so I want to spend a little time on this. Create an outline. This is the next step. That's probably the second greatest weakness in our fellowship, is creating an effective outline. I remember in preaching class spending so much time going over outlining. I remember reading this book by Robinson called Biblical Preaching. It's probably the best preaching book I ever read. Do you guys read that? It's such a good one, just talking about outlining. One, so we're under D, and then a regular number one. Advantages to a great outline. Advantages to a great outline gives greater clarity and confidence to you. When you know what you're going to say and when you're going to say it, you're not jumping all over the place. You know that point's coming later. You're clear about where you're trying to go. It makes a huge difference. You feel confident knowing what's coming up in your sermon. Also, it allows greater freedom to connect with your audience. If you have a good outline, you know what's coming up later, you're preaching, you know your outline, it's very intuitive, it's very clear. You can look around and connect and emote and share and have eye contact and stuff like that because you know you're not going to stray off point. You have that outline to anchor you back in. Next, it keeps you from drifting from your purpose. We've all seen preachers, we've been preachers that are just drifting all over and you're like, bring it home, brother. I remember Booker Murphy in St. Louis. This guy was up there preaching on and on. Anybody know Booker Murphy from back in the day? This guy's like best song leader in the kingdom way back then. This old African-American guy, you can tell Booker Murphy. You know how many white guys have that name? But this guy, he was up there and this brother's like preaching. He's going on and on and on. And then he just goes, bring it home, brother. It's so funny. But sometimes we just ramble, but an outline keeps you from drifting from your purpose. Another thing, it promotes greater understanding and remembering from your audience. This is huge. My goal when I do an outline is that people who take notes, their notes look just like mine. And sometimes I test that. I test it in staff. I go, okay, Brian, I want you to stand up and share the outline from last Sunday of the sermon I did. Okay, what was point 1? What was point 2? What was subpoint? And you go, it looks just like my sheet.
Wow.
That's my goal. It's because it promotes reproduction and remembering to have a clear outline versus people going, that was a great lesson, but I don't really remember it and I don't know how to reproduce it. It really helps you that way. And then on that note, it allows for easier reproduction from your audience. Okay, I kind of said that, remembering, but also reproduction. Versus, you look at a lot of evangelical preachers today, very engaging, very entertaining. I'm not opposed to, the Andy Stanley approach. I think it's great. I think there's a great role to it. But try to reproduce some of those lessons. You realize Andy he's a master. I mean, he's a wizard at doing stuff. It's kind of like some of our fellows, so I'm not going to mention names. They're amazing at what they do. But if you go try to preach it, you go, I just got a page of thoughts. I don't even know the outline. I won't even know where to begin. So you can use that ability, if you have that talent, to just dazzle. But if you come up with a great outline, you're giving something that other people can use and reproduce for years. I would rather do B. I think I can dazzle. I can do stuff like that. But I want to give people a tool that people go, I preached your series on Hebrews. I did your series on Acts. I did this lesson. I did that lesson. Then you're impacting so many more people. So that only comes when you have a really great outline. Okay, number 2 under this point, keys to a great outline. Keys to a great outline. Again, this sounds intuitive, but it's very misunderstood. First, create mutually exclusive points. So many times you'll see people preach and it'll be like, point number 1, believe. Point number 2, have faith. You're like, well, that was point 1. Really? 1 point. And sometimes it's not that clear, but if you don't need an extra point, if it's not mutually exclusive, don't say it. Why clutter our brains? We got enough stuff coming in there anyway. We don't want to set up a spam filter. Just give us what we need. Create mutually exclusive points. That's so important. Keep it simple. If you don't need 3 points, do 2. If you don't need 4, do 1, do 2. You don't even need points. Just have 1 point maybe that Sunday. But create mutually exclusive points. Then make sure all the points are unified with the purpose. So you have the points, say like 1, 2, 3 as the points, but then each one has to go back to your infinitive statement to get everybody, to inspire everyone to focus on their heart for God and one another. Does point 3 go back to that? Does point 2 go back to that? Sometimes people have that purpose statement, then they just start listing points that have nothing to do with that purpose statement. So you got to keep that purpose statement on your page, and each of the points, they're mutually exclusive, and they all tie back in to that purpose statement. They're necessary. Does that make sense? Then the third thing, still under keys to a great outline, make the points memorable. Phil Slade, again, one of my preaching professors, would always say, brethren, put a handle on your sermons. People can take it with them everywhere they go. I say this over and over in Denver. Put a handle on them. This makes the difference between a good sermon and a great sermon. I will spend, and I'm not kidding, I'll spend hours trying to come up with just the right word. That it sticks. It makes a difference. And most people don't even know that I did, but they remember it. They remember it later because I put a handle on it. It makes a big difference. And there's different ones that I use, and maybe you've used some of these, and maybe it sounds trite, like you're like, oh, we just need to preach the word and not worry about that. No, I want to preach the word too. Right. But if I can preach the word with all its biblical depth, and then put a nice handle on it, it's going to be a lot better. Okay? You can have all the great content, but if there's no handle on it, they just have a bunch of good content they can't take with them. So you really want a good handle, okay? Maybe you want to spell a word. How many people spell words? Remember back in the day we'd spell words like that? That each point starts with a letter. I mean, David did that. You look at acrostics, the Psalms and stuff like that. It's a very biblical thing, to use a different word like that. Like Psalm 119 goes through the Hebrew alphabet. Each stanza starts with a different letter, the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So you can spell a word. I remember doing this sermon on bent. I love that sermon. Where Jesus, rode as a conqueror bent on conquest. You remember that in Revelation? And the sermon just spelled bent. It was like, be fired up, energize the troops, never say die or something like, till the last drop of your blood or something. And then, they don't know what you're doing. Then you're like, what does it spell? Bent. They're like, oh, bent. And then, for years, they go, remember that sermon? Bent, man. And I'm like, let's all, as we sing the final song, let's all bend over a little bit. And all the brothers are like, hey, man, it's the content, yes, but man, you put a handle on that, and then brothers are just like, brother, it just sticks. Bent like that, it makes a difference. Or maybe you can use the tool of similar sounding points. I remember doing the first sermon I did at Cal Berkeley many years ago, unity, purity, humility. Just all from Joshua. Unity, purity, humility. They just sound like they flow well together. So they're similar and people stick with it. That sticks to them. They have a handle on it. Or maybe you use a repetitive word or phrase. Like I did with this heart sermon, the your heart. So the your heart, a fully committed heart, a wide open heart. What are the two kinds of hearts God is looking for in us today? A fully committed heart. 2 Chronicles 16:9. And then a wide open heart. In Corinthians, open wide your heart. So it uses the word heart and the indefinite article a. It's a repeated word or phrase. Or maybe you can use rhyming. I remember doing a sermon, see the conqueror, be the conqueror. It was about Jesus. See the conqueror in Jesus, be a conqueror in Jesus. Or maybe a common initial letter. We've all done the 3 P's or 3 C's or something like that. Purpose, priority, passion. I still, I'm talking to my wife, everything just comes out with 3 P's or 3 C's or something like that. It's just kind of naturally in me. Or maybe a similar meter in your points. Remember the past, envision the future. I'll watch people do, maybe they'll take those points, for example, and do something like, remember where you've been in earlier years. And then they're like, so point number 1, remember the stuff gone by. You're like, what was it? It's like, but if you go, remember the past, envision the future. It sticks. Like, if you say a point, that's the point. I see this all the time. People say a point and then change the name of the point. It doesn't stick. Content, great. But the handle, terrible. You ever had a really good suitcase? The handle breaks. What do you do with the suitcase? Throw it away. Like, the handle has to work or it's not going to get you anywhere. So those are some of the keys to a great outline. Then as we go on into this point, you want to create an effective title. This is huge. You ever think about movies and how much money they put into their titles? I would see that like when I was over in Asia, they have different titles to the movies than they do in America. I remember going over to Asia, seeing this movie. It was called something like Winter Assassin. Okay, it pulled me in. I'm like, I'm going to go see Winter Assassin. I go into the theater, I'm like, all right, Winter Assassin. I don't know what it's about, but it's going to be good. And then it says in English underneath it, the real name of it for America, Smilla's Sense of Snow. I'm like, I got cheated. I don't know what Smilla's Sense of Snow. I don't even know what that is, but they knew Filipinos aren't going to see Smilla's Sense of Snow. Let's call it Winter Assassin. It worked. I went to see it for that reason. In Thailand, every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is called Metal Man. Like everyone, they're just like, just call it Metal Man. They'll all come in, Metal Man, Comlek. I mean, that's what it is. And it's just, wait, what is this? Is this Terminator 1? It's just Metal Man. Everyone wants to go see Metal Man. So the titles make a difference. So you want your title to be catchy. You want it to be brief. You want it to be intriguing. You want it to be memorable. I hear people all the time. Title of my message is, we have got to make sure that we're really doing our best to serve the Lord day in and day out. What? And then it changes this throughout the time. So you want to be able to say, your title is this, and then they got it. They just get it. What do you preach on? Here's the title. If the tape guys are saying, the recording guys go, what was the title of your message? You blew it. You should be repeating that over and over. It should be catchy. It should be clear. People are looking for that last sermon. There's the title. They know exactly, and the title fits with what the sermon was. Not like smell a sense of snow, but you go, I know what that sermon was about, because that title captured it really well. It sounds little, but this really makes a difference. So I remember in that lesson, that year our theme was go. I did this whole sermon on go, and I looked up, it was like, there's no God without go, G-O. There's no gospel without go, G-O. Like I used all G-O words like that. There's no growth without G-O. Anyway, no glory without G-O. I got into it. But the title of the message was, Let My People Go. Well, man, that just sticks. Like, let my people go. Everybody remembers what that was. This last one, when I traveled around to the different churches in the Rocky Mountains, the title was just, Your Heart. Your heart. What did John talk about? Your heart. What did we learn today at church? Your heart. I sent them all my notes to leaders so they could go through in their quiet times, and they're focused on your heart. It makes a difference to have a simple, good title like that. And then you make sure that your outline has glance value. When all is said and done, you look at your outline, and it's got to have glance value. This is the key to preaching without notes. And that book by Kohler, I reference it later on in your handout there, that he writes How to Preach Without Notes. It's really interesting that this whole appeal is, how do you preach without notes? You have a great outline. You go, wait, I wanted to preach without notes. But the key to preaching without notes is you have such a good outline that it makes intuitive sense to you, that even if you just lose your notes, you can go on because you had such a good outline, it's in your brain. If it's all just running script, you're enslaved to it. Now there's times if I'm preaching a really important message, I script it all. I mean word for word, because it's recorded, I want it to come out right. But most of the time I just have an outline with glance value to where if I lose my notes, I still go, I think I got it. Because it was so clear. There's these 3 points and then these sub-points. It's pretty clear. That's what allows you to have glance value in your notes. You can look down and see something, and then you can look out and see your audience. And people go, wow, I didn't just look at the top of his bald head. And it gets worse as the years go by. They're like, oh, I didn't know he was that bald when you lean over. So they don't just see that, but they see you looking at him because your outline had glance value. Okay, does that make sense? So those are some of the keys to a great outline.